does happen in Post Shifters? Welcome back to another episode of the Post Shift Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Shawn Soole. So as a part of our January 2026, as always, I always do like an outlook series in January to sort of talk to people who can give us a bit of insight into what we should be expecting in 2026. I like to try and give as much value in January, well, all year round. Just January is when I really focus on shit, and then after that, I just... but January, I want to really give a great outlook to what we should be doing. And so today we're going to be talking about branding and storytelling with Mike Dargie. So his new book, BrandJitsu, please get a copy. It's really fantastic. It's not dry. It's really dynamic. And really, there's pictures. I should mention there's pictures. But there's really great diagrams and how you can wrap your head around your brand message and your brand story and how to project that out to the world. So I'm really looking forward to having a chat because I haven't had too many branding people on the show before. We really usually get into the operations side of things. So this is like really meta sort of style an episode for that. So welcome, Michael. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Shawn. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
So I'm a big comic book guy. You can see my comic book first editions all in frame back here. What's your origin story? How did you get into the branding, marketing, sort of storytelling game?
Oh my gosh. So it goes way, way, way back. Yeah, I'm going to go back to 1979. Actually, we're going to go. You want origin story? Yeah, here it comes. So, we moved from just outside of Toronto to Calgary in '79, and my dad bought my sister and I a TRS-80, a Coco color computer. I don't know if anybody listens to the show is with me on this, but it was a monumental sort of moment as a kid because I taught myself how to program in BASIC so that I could do art and music on the computer. And I think that it started there because you have to start thinking about storytelling, like right from the get-go, not just the programming that goes around it, but what story are you going to tell before you start telling that story. So that'd be the birthplace of it. And then I got involved with Loose Moose Theater, an improv company here in Calgary. For a bunch of years, I did some classes with them, started my own company called Radical Artistic Tendencies, started teaching corporate people how to use Photoshop and Illustrator in the 90s, took over a applied multimedia training center across Canada. So Calgary, Winnipeg, Miramichi eventually, and was going to be out on the West Coast as well at some point. So is this too much info?
Nope, keep going. Yeah, we're good. Keep going.
Awesome. And then I found myself getting headhunted and became the communications director at a place called Service Intelligence, which was a customer experience management firm based in Calgary and Seattle. And then I spent my time sort of going back and forth between Calgary and Seattle. And we were trying to help people, businesses, big ones like Fortune 500s and Fortune 100s, how to make sure that they're communicating the story that they say they are to their customer. And in doing so, I had to help our sales team, bridge that gap and help them tell our story to those people so they could tell their story, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Long story short, 5 years later, I got packaged out. We got bought by a company in North Carolina, and I then started my own thing. And I did some work for a big company as a contractor, and I didn't love it because I had no creative anything. I was given the brand standard, and it was like this thick.
Here are the colors we use. Here's the fonts we use. This is what we use. This is the angle of everything. Yeah,
absolutely. And I was like, I paid really well, but I was not inspired whatsoever. So a friend of mine was teaching at Mount Royal University, and he needed a year off. And he was like, "Hey, Dargie, can you take my classes this year?" And I was just like, sure. So I took over, and I was an interim teacher at Mount Royal in the communications faculty for a year while I sort of decided what to do with my life. And as I came out the other side of it, I ended up getting somebody who was just like, "Hey, you got to meet Dargie. He can help you with your brand." So I took this, small mom and pop shop, and I applied all the stuff that I learned from Fortune 100, 500 brands and applied it to a small business. And that made a huge impact. So then word got around. So I got another small company and another small company. And as the story goes, my business grew and grew. And then I found myself speaking at the Alberta Treasury Branch Entrepreneurs Program. They have a lunch and learn. And I ended up speaking with somebody there after my talk on branding called BrandJitsu, the original BrandJitsu back at the beginning. And we went out for coffee and he was just like, oh, I really want you to do my logo. I'm like, cool. I love logos. Logos are fun. He's just like, it's going to be a boat. I'm like, all right, it's going to be blue. Okay. And I'm just like, why? He goes, I don't care. And I'm like, well, I do. I'm probably not the right fit for you. And he was just like, what do you mean? So I went to explain, because I never had to explain this to anybody before. And so I grabbed a Sharpie, which I always have with me, and I grabbed a napkin and I drew this really rough iceberg. And I said, okay, this is the world's cheesiest metaphor. And I said, what you're asking me to do is above the surface. That's the outward expression of your brand, the stuff that everybody sees. And I said, I understand why you want to start there. But if you want something that people will remember or something that people will identify with, we need to go deeper down into the abyss under the surface and, figure out what do you do? Why do you do it? Who do you do it for? Why do they care? Answer those 4 questions. And then we can start building up towards the surface from there. We can get into your brand personality, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he was just like, oh my God, I understand. And so then we did that deep work. And that's what, so I don't know, that it's just been for the last 10 years what I've been just working on, harping on. And that's where the book came from, is work with what I learned from before to now. I realized that went well beyond an origin story.
No, that's perfect. The one thing that I'm curious about, like you were mentioning, like the small companies that hired you and you applied that big company sort of mentality towards, like, because I feel like sometimes, and I talk about this a lot in the hospitality spheres, because like we're sort of like shoot from the hip and like very gray area mentality.
Yeah.
And when you try and apply corporate mentalities, things like, no, I can't do the corporate. I'm like, there's a reason why corporate restaurants and corporate spaces, corporate companies are so successful, is because they have the structure.
Yeah.
But you find, even though you didn't have that sort of creative outlet with the big corporate guys, that everything you sort of learned in that thick book binder, fonts, colors, that's the thing, applies to the small mom and pop shops and makes them even more successful.
Absolutely, because as soon as they understand that their story needs guardrails, right? Like people need to. Let me use this as an example. In Loose Moose Theater is an improv company, and Keith Johnstone, one of the founders, would say that when you walk on stage as an actor in an improv show, you have about 30 seconds where you can do whatever you want, and the audience will go with you, because the audience doesn't know the story you're going to tell either. Nobody knows. But he goes, after those 30 seconds. There needs to be, he calls it a platform. They need to know, who are you, where are you, what are you doing, who are you with, and what's your relationship. And if you can build that platform for them, then they understand the circle of expectations of where that story can go. They relax, they suddenly get interested, because now they're trying to see where the plot might go. They have some ideas of their own, and they're delighted when you discover those with them. And why am I telling you this? Because with a company, any business, a bar, any sort of hospitality, small business, big business, it doesn't matter. You know what the circle of expectations are when you go in there. You know how you will be treated. You know what to expect. And, you relax into that. It doesn't mean you can't have fun and do some weird stuff. Like the speakeasy culture right now in North America is really dope. And the ones that do it well have got a very defined identity and a very defined circle of expectations. And then every once in a while, they'll dip out of that circle to the delight of the people who are used to it. If that makes any sense?
Yep.
But yeah, I think the goal is to allow people to feel comfortable and, understand the story.
So in 2026, because this is our 2026 outlook, what do you think the biggest, and I'm going to use branding as like the whole scope of messaging, storytelling, all that sort of stuff, but so you should have to keep re-explaining the storytelling thing and marketing. Also, what's the biggest branding myth that most businesses still believe and actively hold on to in 2026? You're just like, no, this is a very old school mentality. We need to nix this, or evolve it to what is more modern take on it?
Oh gosh. Okay, well, I guess, and I don't know what I don't know, but I will say this. Here's what I've noticed, is that for the big corporate people, and it's trickled down into places I go, like here in Calgary, I like to go to the Kensington pub, different places. And it doesn't matter what happens, hopefully you get seen fairly quickly, you get your drink and you get to sit down and have whatever. It's the 2-minute rule to come back, and it doesn't matter what you're doing, interrupt your moment that you're having with the person you're sitting across from, make sure everything's okay, and then go back and set the stopwatch again to come back in another amount of time. I think that I don't know where that came from, when that became a thing. Certainly when we started homogenizing restaurants and bars to, the Boston Pizzas of the world, not to slag on them, but like that Mother's Pizza is where I, cut my teeth as a waiter, and I was trained that way. It doesn't matter what the customer was doing. I was going to interrupt them because it was important to the business that I, check that box. I think that's a myth. I think that you have to, I think we have to give our wait staff more credit, that they understand what's happening in the world that they're in and make the appropriate approach at the appropriate time. So I don't know if that answers the brand question, but it seemed to me like there's a checkbox compliance thing that you had to do.
Yeah. And now it's sort of, it is flicking to the other direction too, where it's a little bit too unsanctioned and checkbox. And then you start getting bad service. And so it is a dial that needs to be turned back and forth.
Yeah.
So in BrandJitsu, you talk about leverage over force. Yeah. What does that actually look like to an operator? And this is let's spread it out past hospitality. What does that look like for an operator trying to build a brand without a huge amount of money, without a staff on, like, I'm a solopreneur, like I don't have a team. And how do they make more noise leveraging that sort of brand story?
Yeah, I think being really clear on the story is the key to it. Like when I talk about Make More Creative is my agency. That's that I've been playing with for the past 20 some odd years. And when people ask what I do, I just say, I help you find, shape, and share your story with the world so everybody gets it. And they go, oh, sweet. What would you do if, or I've got this idea, or I have a challenge that. So that's just one sentence that summarizes how I help you. So my advice then would be, find that one sentence that allows people to ask questions, that invites them in, where, you can be like, what am I trying to say? Being really specific about your offer. And invite people to ask questions.
So how do you balance out that? Because I've seen it in the past, and this is across multiple big brands and marketing corporations. Yeah. How do you balance out that storytelling about, like, what we want you to know about us, and then the return, which is the external, of like what people say about us? Because I think that's always the hard thing, is like, as owners and entrepreneurs, we know what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
But then the perception of the public to your brand, how do you balance that out? So sort of like align it as best you can.
Yeah. There was a company, I'm just looking around my studio here to see if I have the book. Parker LaPlay out of Seattle put it out. And I'll try to remember the name of it. But it basically came down to living your brand. So once you're clear on the brand and how the brand shows up in the world, and you can train your staff to live that brand when they're in that microcosm, you're going to get feedback. And I guess the idea here is that you put out your best foot forward. You'd be like, this is what I think people want, what they'll resonate with, and how they're going to feel about it. Then when you start getting feedback, you're either going to hear, yep, you nailed it, or know that it's kind of mushy in the middle. We haven't made a strong enough impression one way or the other, or people will hate it. And I guess the thing to understand is that not everybody will love what you do and how you show up. And that's good.
I had to deal with some sort of thing exactly like that at the end of 2025, and it was a bit of a brutal Christmas dealing with that.
Yeah, but I think that there's power. There's power in that. There's power in not being milk toast or milk toast. You know, like where you don't have to. I don't know. Pick a lane. Like be the rebel. Like I was thinking about. I know this isn't like a bar, but like Hotel Z, for example. You know, a BC chain. And accent hotels, so the parent and the unruly child. Right, they very clearly defined the experience that you will have when you walk onto any one of their properties. They've curated every little part of it, and it will attract the people in that they want and detract the people that they don't want. And I'll use Hotel Z as a quick example. I was on a motorcycle trip out to the island. Gosh, was it part of my book here? No, it's a year before. Anyway, I'd done like a 10-hour ride that day. And I was just like, oh, I should stay in Hotel Z because I got to Kelowna, pardon me. And dude, I was wet. I was miserable. I was tired. I was sore, but I was not in the right mind frame for Hotel Z. Like it's lovely. And I mean, I can't say a bad thing about it other than for the $400 for that one night.
Yeah, and that's all. I'm traveling to Kelowna myself. I'm just like Hotel Z or the Delta, and they're like an $80 difference. I'm like, I'm going to go the Delta. Like, I love Hotel Z. My daughter loves Hotel Z. Whenever we go to Kelowna, we stay at Hotel Z.
Totally.
It's that 70s, 80s sort of vibe. Like it's awesome in summertime. But I completely agree. You need to be in the same mind frame. Do you think that's a pitfall that a lot of ownership go into, is trying to appeal to everybody? Even with seeing like franchises and like there's people like Coca-Cola and Pepsi. You either love Coca-Cola or you love Pepsi, but you very rarely have a Venn diagram where people like both. Do you think ownership falls into that pitfall of, oh shit, if I don't appeal to everybody, I'm going to fail?
Yeah, I think so. I think that happens a lot, and I think that the problem there is that's why, like we have places in Calgary that see new ownership all the time. Like and these are bars or pubs or whatever that never last. You know, because they start out strong, and then they just water themselves down over time because, you know, I don't know, maybe they had a bad week and they're just like, oh my God, now we need to do this, you know, to get this kind of customer in. But then suddenly you just ostracized, you know, your base customer that you, you know, appealed to originally. And before you know it, it's like, I don't know, it's meaningless. And I think that people, when they go out and spend money, you know, it's not like you have to have a life-changing experience when you go to a bar out for drinks, but you want to have an experience.
So with you being doing this for so long, obviously brand messaging has definitely like changed and evolved over the last like 20 odd years that you've been doing this, from like print media, paper ads, billboards, radio ads, so on and so forth. Of course, the rise of social media and now AI. Have you seen that sort of brand messaging being able to change and become more fluid as you have more options to spread it?
Yes, I guess the way, the interesting question, because I think that you need to find a way to stay on brand across different mediums. You know, certainly we have more of those. Like I was just working with a client recently, and we have this campaign going out, and it's hitting all these different mediums. But so long as the core remains the same, then you can have fun on the edges. If that, you know what I mean? So when people see a campaign, you need to make sure that it's the same one that they're that's being imprinted on them currently, but it also has to be different enough that it doesn't become noise. Because that's what we're up against right now, is just all this noise everywhere. So we need to give people, we need to give people places to hang on to, you know?
So how do you see AI now that we are getting into this? It is a new era of content creation, copy. How is that helping brands, or not so much helping brands, put out their voice these days? Because I know that like Google's AI, like if you type in cocktails in Calgary, you're going to have Google punch back an AI version of the best cocktails in Calgary, not
Right.
necessarily websites or stuff like that. It's Google AI punching.
Yeah.
How do you see that like folding in pros and cons for that?
Well, I mean, it used to be that, I mean, the algorithm, Google algorithm has always been lopsided anyways. If you knew how to game it, you know, you could have the best cocktail in Calgary or in Victoria. And just because it's the best, just because you have said it's the best enough, and you have some outside signals saying that it's the best, doesn't mean that it's the best. So I think that it comes down to the simple fact is that your tribe will tell you where the best cocktail is. From an AI perspective, I think that, if you have a website, you have some social media, you need to be curated. You need to be very conscious about the message that you're putting out there, the tone that you're putting out there. Pick a couple things. You don't have the best steak, the best cocktail, the best bartender, the best whatever patio. Like, again, pick something specific. And if you want to be the best at something, be the best at that, but then have everything else support that story. Because AI will pick that up, because we're no longer in, search land like SEO. I don't know how much that matters right now, except that it's, AI SEO. I don't even know if that's a thing.
It's actually becoming a thing now. It's still very new, but it is like AI's crawling the websites. Like, I'm always flabbergasted when I put it in something in a ChatGPT, and I'm like, put it in the tone of me, and it will write something in the tone of me. And I'm just like, this AI has told me things that I have thought about and have never verbalized, that it's verbalized for me. So I'm like, oh, that quote, I wouldn't have never said that quote, but it is something that I would say.
Yeah.
Just because there's so many videos and snippets and bits like that.
Yeah.
So do you do obviously you follow through when you're working with these brands and these ownerships. How do you take that sort of like boardroom meeting, sort of high fluting storytelling, all that sort of stuff, and then actually adapt it into daily routines that has to spread throughout the staff?
Great question. You need to make it. It's in the title of my book. We need to make it memorable. It needs to be simple enough. And here's the other thing. And I've tattooed this on my arm. It says, keep it simple, because I'm the worst at this. And I keep reminding myself, because I have to remind my clients all the time, that we have to keep these things simple. Don't overcomplicate it. You don't have to give people like this huge playbook for them to remember. You need to give them some hooks, some things that they can remember to do consistently, and then reward that behavior when you see it. And if you see contrary behavior, correct it in the most positive way. At Loose Moose Theater, if you're asked, oh, do you want to do this thing? You can just say nope. It's the nicest way to say no, and then everybody knows that that's a signal, to move on. Be like, okay, try something else. How about this one? Nope. And then you move on. So I think that, the boardroom, we put them all up on high, but I would suggest that the boardroom needs to, chill out a bit. Don't take themselves too seriously, and realize that we have to deal with people that are going to be, you presenting your idea, your story to the world. So how can we make it simple and fun for them to do that?
So when it comes to that, like founder-led businesses where the founder is forefront, which is huge now, like entrepreneurs are like rock stars these days. Like in the last 10 years, entrepreneurship has become their rock stars. How do you build a powerful brand that is somewhat also fragile? Because you always hear about founders getting pushed out of their companies, so on and so forth. And so they've really led with them being the focus point of the story. How do you sort of tell a founder to like take a step back and like layer it out onto the whole company?
Well, I think it's not going to be right for every founder. There are some founders that need to get shoved out the door. No, for real. And I think that, although they might feel spicy about that in the beginning, at the end, they'll be just like, yeah, because that allowed me to take what I learned and go build another thing. Right. Because the founders only live so long in this ecosystem, and, and then they do need to move on if they end up getting bought out or they got partners or whatever. I would suggest, though, that, the most power a founder has is to make more founders under them. like to not be precious about that. It's about you. You know, if you can make it about the other person, if you can, help share that with them, then you'll build a much stronger experience for everybody.
That's awesome. You mentioned in the book that you say your brand is a filter, not a megaphone. In practical terms, where should businesses be saying no more often, as you were just saying, like nope, more often heading in 2026? Like, are there things that you have to be very specific about? Like, you can't say yes to everything.
Yeah. And I don't know. This might be right for some people, not right for others.
Not everybody's going to like what you do.
Yeah, pandering. Stop pandering to people. That would be, stop that. You can, if somebody says, I want to talk to the manager, you can be like, great, talk to the manager. And then they might be like, I had this experience. You can listen to them and be like, yep, you did. And, I'm sorry, here's a gift certificate, or, we'll cover your drink. I just don't come back. I think that allowing people to not resonate with you is powerful. I don't think we have to apologize all the time. If things really go sideways, sure, of course, like you don't ruin your brand because you're, all that in a bag of chips. But sometimes it's I don't know what happens behind the scenes. Like if say a waitress or waiter has a bad day and, they get called out for it. I don't know what the management will do for that or how they'll help the client have a great experience, but they also need to make sure that the waiter or waitress has a great experience as well. Like, I think looking after your people is really important.
So talking about culture, how often, like, because this happens all the time, you see on the surface outward marketing and outward brand storytelling that we're a family and we're this and we're XYZ and we're loving, and then you go to like Glassdoor and it's like 2 out of 5 on Glassdoor, and like everybody's just like, this place is a freaking cesspool and how hell on earth. How do you, when it comes to talking about this, if you've been brought in, because a lot of times I find a lot of operators will bring you in and owners will bring you in going, oh, something's wrong with my brand and my marketing, and not even include culture in that conversation. Where the culture actually helps you build learning. How do you sort of realign that for people? I know it's going to be a tough conversation, but how do you realign that for people?
Well, I think that when you're telling this story, like when you just told me this, I was just like, oh man, and this is not just in hospitality. It's rampant all over the place. But here's the telling sign. We do this, we do that. Our thing is the best. And our thing, if you're telling me, if you have to tell me this, probably it's not that. That's number one. Number two is that if it's all about you, then it's not about the customer. You can tell right away. And I think we have a very fine filter for that sort of thing. I call it the we to you ratio, where the number of times you talk about yourself versus the number of times that you talk about your customer in their voice. If it's more we and less you got a problem. And that's a very easy problem to fix.
Big time. Yeah, as I said, like you see this bro, I'm gonna say tech bros, like tech bro culture.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, we're buddies where we do this and this and this, and then you go on like Glassdoor and you see reviews and you're just like, maybe you're not as nice as you think you are.
Yeah. I think it's selfish culture, and it only lasts so long. Right. If you need to make the hero the customer has to be the hero of the story. You're not the hero. The customer is. You're the Yoda to their Luke Skywalker or Princess Leia, right? You've got the Force. You're going to teach them the Force. Then they're going to go off and do battle with the Empire, right? That's your job.
That's very cool. In a world of like virality and the social media like algorithms and stuff like that, which are completely 2026, I think, is going to get more bonkers. Like social media algorithms are just insane these days, because we both podcast and we both like are in that realm, and it's just like you just never know what's going to stick. Like you post something and something blows up and you're like, that wasn't supposed to blow up that way. I just posted that because it was a memory or something. Right. And then you post something that's super curated and super like finite down to the freaking millimeter, and then how do you build that sort of consistent message when there is this sort of not necessary need, but this sort of drive for what's my next viral clip? Like, what's my next
Oh,
thing the algorithm's going to pick up and blow up?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to challenge this a little bit. And
Great.
it could be the gray hairs in my beard. I don't know. But I know how I consume social media.
Mhm.
And usually I'll get locked into
Doom
this.
scroll.
Yeah. But it's not doom scroll. It's filled with cats, dude. Like, it's like my algorithm is all kittens and like cool stuff. But the reality is that there's a couple fitness people that I follow because I'm at the gym in the morning and like I want to do an exercise. There's one guy I think in particular, he has been making some offers like put this in the comments and I'll send you a PDF to work your chest or whatever. And I did it and bam, like that, it showed up in my inbox. I was just like, holy crap, that's awesome. I'm not doing anything with them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think the challenge that I have with social media and becoming viral and all that shit is that people think that it's relevant. And it's really not. It's just more noise into the machine. I think that, and I really, maybe 2026 is the year that, you know, this gets some better traction, but I really do think it's people talking to people is what will get people in your door and sitting on a chair. It's how you get treated when you're there. Does it match the expectation that you have? Like, is it a vibe that you want? Do you want to add that to your identity? We're like, is it hermit crabs that like put shit on their shells to, you know, like name a bar in Victoria that you love that's on your shell. You know what I mean? But it's not going to be through social media that you find that place.
And if you do find it on social media, 9 times out of 10 it's overhyped and then super busy and like gain a Michelin star. So BrandJitsu, for like the last question here before we sort of get close to wrapping up.
Sure.
For anyone, and I'm talking about like I got entrepreneurs who are not necessarily in the hospitality sphere, they're in like the food and beverage sector, but there's a whole bunch of stuff. What is the one thing they should go and get your book and take away for 2026 and try and implement? One simple thing they can try and implement this year for 2026.
Oh, great question. Answer those 4 questions. What do you do? Why do you do it? Who do you do it for? Why do they care? And it's the who you do it for and why they care are the really most important pieces of that puzzle. So if you're going to spend any time thinking on stuff, like have that in your brain as you're walking, treading the boards, we say in the theater. But if you're walking around your bar, if you're walking around down the street, you know, who are you doing this for and why do they care? And does that match with why you do it? Because authenticity we didn't talk about, and it's been a bit of an overused word lately. But if you're authentically doing this thing because it's cool and you love it, and you know, you nerd out on comics, man, like your love for comics is like legendary. Imagine if you had a bar that, you know, had that level of passion behind it. And then you will find those people that also have that passion. And if you deliver on that, why do they care? Why do you do it? And why do they care? Oh my God, you've got a recipe for a huge win.
Well, going back to authenticity, because we didn't really talk about that, and it's a great point to bring up. In a world of that virality, social media stuff that we were talking about, is it becoming more difficult for brands to be authentic, not just to themselves, but to like put it out there in the world that they're authentic?
What was it? The term tilting at windmills? Like the idea being that if you're, I don't think it's difficult to be authentic. I think it's critical to be authentic. I think the problem is that we try to do things that are not authentic in order to get eyeballs or to get views. We get these to serve these vanity metrics, which are meaningless in the grand scheme of things. I don't think I've ever met anybody who said, "Oh man, I saw your viral TikTok." Like, what? That like changed my life. No, that I don't. Maybe that has happened. I don't. Again, I got gray in my beard. I could be that old guy. Hey kids, get off my lawn.
So at the end of every podcast, I always ask 5 deep podcast questions.
Oh boy.
It can be applied to your personal life or your career.
All right.
But what is one lesson or experience that has shaped your perspective the most, and how do you carry that forward in your life?
It's one answer. Hey, okay. I'll go. I'm going to go a little dark and then bring the sunshine in.
Okay.
So there has been times in my life where I did not think I could take another step forward. And I mean that literally, figuratively, like across the, everything was so heavy and there's just so much weight on me that even thinking about taking another breath was a struggle. And it was dark, like dark times, like everything was crumbled. And then for whatever reason, I read a quote from Winston Churchill, and he said, "When going through hell, keep going." And that hit me in a way that I wasn't expecting, because I realized in that moment that if I stop, I just get to stay in hell. If I keep moving, it doesn't matter what direction, but if I keep moving, then eventually I'm going to get out of it. And I just had this unshakable faith that if I stayed still, I'd be stuck there. But if I kept moving, I would find my way out. And I still find that today, not as dire, because, you know, I'm not in that dark place, but I do think about that quite often, that when you're going through something, just keep going through it. Like sometimes you enjoy it. Right?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
If you could leave one lasting message or piece of wisdom for the world, what would it be and why?
One piece of wisdom for the world. Boy, oh boy. Audere est facere is Latin for to dare is to do. And I think that's my mantra.
I love that. I know it's on your website. Looking back on your journey, what is something you wish you had understood earlier in life?
Don't listen to gatekeepers.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Kick that gate open.
Nice.
Yeah.
How do you define success, and how has your definition of it changed over time?
My success for me lives in the fact that I get to do what I want when I want. It's not about money. It's about the fact that I get to wake up when I want. It just so happens I want to wake up at 5. When I'm done this podcast, I'm going to just make sure everything is the way it should be, and I'm going to go play a video game for the rest of the day. So, if I look back in time, there was a time when I thought that it was all about money and status. You know, and you know, I've got Rubik's cubes. That's my status. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like that stuff doesn't matter. Rolex watches don't matter. Huge bank account is great, but it doesn't matter. Like if you have enough to pay your bills, great. If I get to do what I want, I could probably make way more money if I just focused on the money.
What do you hope your legacy will be, and what steps are you taking to build it?
What I want my legacy to be, that you can just do this stuff. That's what I want the legacy to be. And I think that, you know, I've got two boys, you know, in their 30s. They're both doing that stuff too. Like they feel fine doing what they need to do. So that I think the legacy is secure there. What I try to teach other people to do, maybe not take themselves as seriously as they think they need to. And I don't mean that as a cavalier thing, but don't take yourself too seriously. Like I've sat in boardrooms with CEOs that are wearing Chuck Taylors that are worth billions. And I've sat in, and we get along famously. And then I've sat in boardrooms with CEOs who are like buttoned up, and they are all that in a bag of chips. And no, everybody says yes sir, no sir, and I don't get along with them. But maybe that's good for them. I don't know. We attract like attracts like.
Mike, thank you so much for your time, man. Guys, honestly, BrandJitsu, fantastic book. It's digestible, which I love. It's not too dry, and it is something that if you read it and understand it and make your notes, you're going to be able to do some really great stuff in 2026. So, Mike, thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shawn. You are a great host. Thank you so much. Awesome questions.
Cheers. Well, man, I'll chat to you really soon, okay?
All right. Ciao.
Thanks, buddy. Bye. All right, post shifters, that's it for now. Keep your standards high, your spirits neat, and your team tighter than your paw costs. Catch you next week on the Post Shift Podcast.